Hi. So, hey, Belly Fire ladies, I put out the call on my Instagram stories last week asking for some suggestions on what people wanted to hear, given that this month's topic of relationships is coming to an end. And it was a resounding call for more about relationships with significant others. So, here we go. Careful what we wish for. I'm going to share with you today a story. And it's a story that I call Slow and Painful Death. And yes, I am referring to my previous marriage of 26 years when I say this. And I mean no disrespect to my ex-husband in this sense. I loved him very much, and I still do to some extent. You know, he was a significant part of my life for many, many years, and as the father of my children. But it begs the question, what happened? 26 years, like what happened? Well, I got bored. I wish I could say something more profound than that, but I can't. I would be lying. It creeps up on you. The interest in my relationship began to wane, and I didn't even notice it was happening, to be honest, until it literally just kind of slapped me in the face. And this is what happens with our midlife relationships, We don't even notice it's happening sometimes. It's very gradual, and we can continue to just live and exist and not really realize that these things are happening. So this is what happened to me. It was the small things that we started to take for granted. All of a sudden you find that you're not having to try very hard to get to know your partner anymore. So you don't. You find out that, you come home and you start telling him about your day, and he's just simply going to try and counter you with how his day was worse. So you stop telling him, you know exactly what he's going to say if you bring up a topic of conversation. So you stop bringing it up. He gives you the same answer every time you ask his opinion. So you stop asking. And eventually these small things, they become big things. And before you know it, you're kind of in this place where you have no connection with this person anymore. You start to prioritize your family and your kids and your work, and you make excuses, for all the reasons why you're neglecting or steering away from your relationship. The family needs me, I have commitments, my work, and, all of this stuff. And before you know it, your husband has come all the way down on the list of your priorities. You might still be having sex, but it's lackluster at best and just simply tolerated at worst. There's certainly no intimacy, like zero left. There's no touching, there's no feeling, there's no talking, there's no passion, there's no nothing left, no connection there at all. So before you know it, you're kind of looking at this person next to you and you're going, who the heck is this person? Like, I don't even know you anymore. And it's at this point that you start to pick him apart. And it starts with the little things, like all of a sudden, you start noticing all the little annoying things and you come to your attention. And then next thing you know, you're snickering a little bit to your closest girlfriends. And then you might be having big bitch sessions with your family members or telling your mother or whatever. And before you know it, you don't care anymore and you're just throwing it right at him, and you are criticizing him every chance you get. And then you start looking at yourself and realizing, why am I even with this person? Like, I don't even like anything about him. And he, unbeknownst to you, is probably sitting there saying, well, what have I done to deserve this? And rightly so, right? So this is when it's at this point that small things become big things and bad things happen in good relationships. The bad things, the constant arguing and fighting, the living separate lives under the same roof, one or the other of you either entertaining or engaging in extramarital affairs, or you start having thoughts of what your life might be like without this man. Your mind lingers on it. You start even seeing yourself living that life. It is a slow and painful death. when my marriage died, I grieved it. Like I really did. I battled with myself about playing the blame game in my head. I thought about all the years I'd wasted, all of these things. Because bad things happen to good relationships when small things are ignored. And that's what happened. You see, the most interesting part of this was that my ex-husband at the time said to me, he didn't even know anything was wrong. No idea. Completely blindsided, he reckons. You know what? Yeah. And you know what? I kind of believe him. Because that's exactly why it was wrong. That's why it was wrong. We were so disconnected by that point that there was no coming back, no returning from that whatsoever. So, and second to that, and I'm going to brace myself here for sexist comments from viewers. But second to that, men, for the most part, are, they see relationships so very differently than us. We know that, right? The whole men are from Mars thing, that's not rocket science. Everybody knows that, right? So if it doesn't smack them directly in the face, it didn't happen. So if we're not communicating to them in any other way but criticizing them, which, let's be fair, they're pretty good at ignoring that anyway, then they're not going to hear it. It didn't happen, right? So I believe him when he says that he didn't know what was happening. I believe him because I stopped talking. Remember? I stopped asking. I stopped trying. I just stopped. So I believe him. But you know what? This doesn't have to be your story. It doesn't have to be the eulogy for your relationship by any stretch of the imagination. I share my story because in hopes that some of you might be able to relate with some of these things that are happening in your relationship and you can work on them, catching little things before they become big things, paying attention when you need to pay attention rather than running in the other way and neglecting things, right? Thinking about the small things that you should think about, even if they seem inconsequential. Don't be proud. You have to talk. We have to talk. Men are simple creatures at the end of the day, and I don't mean this in a unintelligent kind of way. I mean it in an uncomplicated kind of a way, right? We are women, and we have a tendency, we all know this, to complicate things more than they need to be. So don't wear your pride. Don't go into a relationship thinking that you can, that you can change things, that you have to be right all the time, that, that you want to criticize everything about this person. It's not necessary. We don't need to argue and be right, and then expect them to bow down. And then if they don't, we kind of wander around with this faux sort of pretentiousness and self-righteousness, it's not right. And it's not fair. And it's not love either, is it? So I leave you with one parting comment, and that is to be the person that you would want to spend the rest of your life with. Be that person. Because if you can be that person, then everyone else around you has to follow suit, right? You're just mirroring what it is that you want in your life. Be that person. So that's all I have to say about my story. And as always, I love to hear your comments and your feedback. And if any of this resonates with you, feel free to share it with someone who you think might get use out of it. And if you'd like to get any more information about midlife relationships, feel free to contact us at Bellyfire Life and see if some of our coaching and mentoring programs are for you. Otherwise, have a great day, and I wish you all the best.